I'd been stationed in Camp Brosen for 3 weeks when the next letter arrived. As before, it relayed a set of instructions bearing no indication of the sender's identity. The previous payments had all been made on time. It scarcely mattered who was sending them. I was to go to Angel Mounds. My employer had access to property wherever I travelled, including this house in Camp Brosen. While I was here, I monitored local radio. There was a channel I'd found which airs the sound from cowboy movies. These radio plays are near impossible to follow, but the audience are presumably familiar with the sources, and the broadcasts merely serve to jog their memories. Angel Mounds is 4 miles southwest of Camp Brosen. Here is mainly farmland, and my visit coincided with the beginning of the agricultural season. The site covers 600 acres and features 13 earthen mounds built between 1100 and 1450 AD by an indigenous people who had disappeared by the time Europeans arrived. Angel is the name of the British family who in 1852 began laying claim to the surrounding land. Each mound is a letter A to L in reference to the first and last letters of Angel. I'll make a trail between them, recording anything that might be of interest to you. Here is Mound A, Mound B, Mound C, Mound D. Here is Mound E being burned by some locals. They reassure me the fires are to rid the site of broom sage, an unwanted weed that strangles the growth of wildflowers. Mound F, Mound G, Mound H, Mound I, Mound J, Mound K. This is not a mound, but rather the former site of the Angel family farm. Notice the absence of any trace of it. I couldn't find Mound L, but I did find this structure. According to a local, J, I encountered hiding behind its walls. It was built in 1973. I asked Jay what the structure is, why he's hiding in it, but he doesn't answer. Instead, he gives me this postcard. It shows the structure with someone dressed in red standing looking at it. I later forward it to my employer, along with notes of all observations. A week after sending the last update to my employer, payment arrived along with a letter confirming my next assignment. I was to travel 1,006 miles to Westford, Massachusetts, there to make inquiries after a Mr. James Gunn. My employer gave no further instruction, but I'd learned not to bother asking questions. In Westford, I was staying with an associate of my employer called Jay. My room opened out onto a spacious balcony. To avoid implication in the events that were to follow, I was issued with a fake identity, that of Max Syedtollan, executor to a small inheritance. What my actual business was with Mr. Gunn remained unclear. I wondered if I ought to kill him. Jay introduced me to some locals, and I swiftly ingratiated myself. Here we are at a birthday party, one of them threw for my fake birthday. On the way home from the party, we chanced upon this flock of turkeys. My investigation so far had been fruitless, so I started following them, in case they were envoys of James Gunn, returning to their master. For a long while, the turkeys led me nowhere. We just spent ages circuiting various empty zones, but eventually We arrived at a patch of ground at the side of the road, which was fenced and had a sign next to it. The sign reads, Prince Henry, First Sinclair of Orkney, born in Scotland, made a voyage of discovery to North America in 1398. After wintering in Nova Scotia, he sailed to Massachusetts, and in 1399 one of the party died. The effigy before you is a memorial to this knight, James Gunn. I made a drawing of the effigy, and taking some biscuit crumbs from my pocket, began scattering them on the ground to pay thanks to my turkey guides, but they'd vanished. The last assignment was received promptly, though for the 3 months that followed I heard nothing from my employer. Awaiting further instruction, I returned to London. In my absence, several huge holes had appeared in the road by my flat. I spent much of this break wandering around taking photos as if pretending to be a tourist. Here's one from when my uncle died, though I can't recall where it was taken. I took 130 photographs that day, but deemed only 3 worth keeping. I can't remember why this one was important. After 3 months, the next letter arrived. I was apparently not the first to read it. It was already opened, roughly resealed with sellotape. There was no knowing who was behind this or whether the letter was genuine, but I couldn't risk ignoring the instructions in case they were in fact my employers. So for whatever reason, and on whoever's orders, I was going to Scotland. Ellenagus is an island housing a replica of a 19th century hunting lodge completed in 2006 based on a destroyed building that was the site of a fake court established by 2 Victorian con men claiming to be descended from the Stuart kings. These so-called brothers Sobieski-Stuart were prolific counterfeiters who produced elaborate fictional documents purporting to be genuine historical artifacts. The journey to the replica had to be undertaken via a detour through the woods so as to avoid detection by the island's owners. After hours of wandering, I finally located it, taking this photograph in the last of the daylight. The investigation of the replica's exterior yielded discovery what appeared to be an entrance into the cellar. I was able to pick the lock and get in, descending into the foundations of the building. In truth, it was less a cellar, more a crawl space. Thorough investigation revealed no means of accessing the building above, but I did chance upon this engraved stone, inscribed with a series of dates and scripts. I made rubbings of the dates, which were clearly legible, though of uncertain significance, 1844 and 1973, while making sketches of the scripts despite being unable to read them. As night had fallen, I was compelled to spend the night in the crawl space, though slept surprisingly well, waking only once at some point late into the night, due to the distant sound of revelry emanating from the replica above. I'd been posted to Cairo, staying in the home of an associate of my employer called Jay. Jay's house had a spacious balcony. Despite the adequacy of these dwellings, I couldn't sleep the past weeks. I've been up, unrelenting, and I felt completely overstimulated. I started keeping a journal of sorts in an attempt to record everything I had discovered. Much of this is now incomprehensible to me. For example, from the first page, what I did was I made a key say if it was full, I would write a number. If it was half, I'd draw a circle. If it was a quarter, I'd do a swirl. If it was a 3/4, I'd do a square. And then I would add up the numbers, and my final answer was 104 centimeters cubed and 3/4. I've been instructed to track down the Saint Simonians, an order of French utopians who sought to revitalize the West by symbolically marrying it to the East. Via construction of the Suez Canal, they preached the inherent good of obedience to authority, that private property will no longer determine social relations, that children become the property of the state. Jay was away during my stay. I was introduced to his brother Jay. He insisted I took 3 pictures of him on each of his 3 sofas, but the other 2 were destroyed in the fire, so only this one is available. Jay explained to me the Saint Simonians used to hold meetings in his living room every Thursday evening, where they would brainstorm ways of revitalising the West via extravagant geo-architectural interventions. Jay's house was surrounded by spacious balconies, though did not itself have a spacious balcony. It was, however, situated near the Suez Canal, which is why the Saint Simonians used to meet there. After 3 days, I still couldn't sleep, so I resolved to spend the nights instead wandering around town in search of pastries. These proved surprisingly elusive, although this is perhaps what made the mission so compelling. Here is a photograph of some cakes I found. They were outside the remit of my brief. On the 17th of November, a letter arrived from my employer, informing me the mission was abandoned and I was to get out as quickly as I could, without arousing further suspicion. As far as I can determine from the journal, I was here for 3 months, though the photographic record suggests less. This picture was taken on my last night, outside Jay's. I remember because it was the night I finally slept.